Yo, what's going on, you guys? Today we have 10 ways Brits and Americans use numbers very differently. I don't know where this video is gonna go. I'm intrigued. I would love to know the ways that we tell numbers differently. We use numbers differently. I don't know. I'm excited. But before we get to the video, let me tell you guys this. We started this channel so we can get to know you guys better. We started this channel so we can get to know you guys' culture, get to know you guys' food, get to know you guys' likes and dislikes, you guys' taste, all of it. So if you could leave a like, that would be great. If you can comment, that would be amazing. But if you could subscribe, that would be even better. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for all the love you guys been giving me. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscribers. Again, like I said in my other video, please continue to educate me. If I say something that's not accurate, please tell me in the comment. I would love to learn more about you guys. That's the goal for me personally. So without further ado, let's get straight to the video.
Don't mind me, just using the calculator on my phone, which I keep in my pocket just to stick it to my year 10 maths teacher who told me that I'd never have such luxury. And speaking of maths, remember a few videos ago when I said this? A question I get all the time is, why do British people say maths instead of math? Well, when it comes to Britain and America, this is by no means the only difference that involves numbers. In fact, since I moved to the United States, my daily life has become filled with numeric anomalies with which my brain may never come to terms.
Really?
Now, before I get into that, I do want to point out that this video will not be examining our two countries' different measuring systems, because I also did that in a previous video. And while we're on the subject of numbers, if you want to propel this channel to 1 million subscribers, and you haven't yet become one yourself, do that now! In the meantime, here are 10 ways that British and American people use numbers very differently.
I don't know. I don't know where this could go. I'm really intrigued. Oh man, put your guess down below. And probably you guys already seen the video. I don't know.
Now, before I hit record on today's video, I did a little bit of a tally as to how many places I've lived in either country. During the 26 years that I lived in Britain, I lived at precisely 5 addresses, compared to 9 during the 16 years that I've lived in America. And during that time, one major pattern has stood out to me. American addresses definitely have longer house numbers, but British addresses have longer postcodes. So it all evens out. In fact, let me give you some examples of what I mean. From memory, every single address that I had in Britain comprised of 2 digits. And pound for pound, the experience of most British people is that their house address won't ever exceed 3 digits. There are occasional exceptions to that, but in America, those exceptions seem to in fact be the rule. Because at virtually all of the places that I've lived in the US, the house or the apartment number has been in the thousands. And all...
That's true. I mean, here, yeah, all my address has been thousands. So you'll see some people have 2, but it's rare. I don't see it often.
These addresses, the American street name itself might contain a number, like 321st Avenue. They don't usually go that high. But 2nd Street. In Britain, a street that's also a number is very uncommon, to the extent that I'm not sure they even exist. However, as I said, Britain has America beat when it comes to the size of our postcodes. And if for whatever reason you're confused by the term postcode, it is simply what Americans know as a zip code. You see, in Britain, a postcode can range from 6 to 8 characters, where in the US it's just 5. However, notice there that I said characters and not numbers. Well, since this video is all about numbers, there is something to keep in mind here. British postcodes are a combination of letters and numbers, meaning that American zip codes probably have more numbers, but that's whatever. The first letters in a UK postcode denote the postal region. So for example, where I grew up in Grimsby, that was part of the Doncaster postal code for some reason. So the first 2 letters are DN. And then you have a series of numbers and letters that denote a more precise location. And that's it. In America, it's just numbers, so that's easy. And basically, the first couple of digits are arranged by state. So here in the state of Illinois, those first 2 digits range from 60 to 62. Of course, when it comes to the size of your house number, there's one group of people who don't give a flying herd of badgers, and that's data brokers. Instead, they're so preoccupied with making bank from selling your address to people search sites. After buying my first American house, I started showing up on hundreds of them. How do I know? Because each instance was identified by today's sponsor. Incogni. Incogni is a personal data removal tool that not only gets in touch with those data brokers, but requests that they take down
you guys
their
are free to
data.
skip it,
And it works too. Incogni very quickly worked its magic, and I was removed.
I don't want to watch this video,
and
just skip
and
his
for a
ad,
YouTube sensation like me, or for people with real jobs, nobody has time to manually submit removal requests alone. In fact, who knows? Maybe data brokers rely on this to break your spirit. The point is, Incogni raises mine. If your personal details are showing up on people search websites, Incogni will help you remove them. In fact, they're giving my subscribers 60% off their annual plan. Head to incogni.com/lostinthepond to get your discount and to thereafter protect your data. The link is in my description below. One other series of digits over which Britain has America beat is phone numbers, actually. Typically speaking, if we're not calling from overseas, in which we would need to use a country code, then a UK phone number usually consists of 11 digits. US phone numbers, meanwhile, consist of 10, basically 2 zip codes put together. The major difference here comes in the area code. For the first 20 years of my life, growing up in Grimsby, my area code was 01472, 5 digits. It's worth keeping in mind that only applies to landline phones. In the last 25 years, of course, we've seen the rise of the mobile phone and/or calculator. In Britain, unlike with landline phones, these are not assigned an area code. In fact, I think most, if not all, mobile phones in the UK begin with the digits 07. Incidentally, those are 2 digits that are going to be very important later on in this video, so keep watching. In America, I was surprised to find that this was quite different, because your mobile, or cell phone as it's usually known in the US, will usually carry the same area code as your landline phone, if you still have a landline phone. So for example, the first place that I lived was Anderson, Indiana, and that city is in a region of Indiana that carries the area code 765. So all of the landlines there begin 765, and if you purchase your cell phone there, most likely that too will have the same area code. And most states, like Indiana and my current state of Illinois.
That's true. That's true. I've lived in Miami. You know, over there you got zip code, you got not zip codes, you got area codes like 305. I live in Fort Lauderdale where you got zip codes. I keep saying zip codes. Well, you have area codes. I think over there you have, I think it's 754 and 954, stuff like that. You know, Broward County area, it's like 954. But yeah, that's true though. If you're in that area, most people are gonna have the same area code when it comes to phone numbers.
Home to multiple area codes, which is why it was surprising to discover there are in fact 12 states, including the behemoth that is Alaska, that have just one. And that's because said states have more cows than people, probably. Earlier on, when I said this, just to stick it to my Year 10 maths teacher who told me that I'd never have such luxury, it did occur to me that my thousands of American viewers might have been thinking, what's Year 10? Was Lawrence born in the 1st century? No. A year in this instance is the equivalent of what Americans would call a grade at school. And it just happens that this particular example is a year populated by 14 to 15-year-olds. And you might be thinking, ooh, Lawrence, that's not 10, that's grade 9. Well, actually, it's both, You see, from between the ages of 5 to 6, British children begin what is known as Year 1. But as I discovered while watching the documentary The Kindergarten Cop, Americans don't call that the 1st grade, they call it kindergarten. And so their numbering system is always one behind us. Oh, and speaking of years, that brings us on to this. I think at this point most of us are probably aware that Britain and America can't agree on how to write the date. Obviously in Britain it's day 1st, month 2nd and year last. As evidenced by our famous Guy Fawkes slogan, remember, remember the 5th of November. Whereas in America of course it's flipped, as evidenced by July the 4th. Americans usually say the 4th of July. I don't know why they do that. But for everything else, it's the month 1st and the day 2nd. Why do they do that? Well, you'll just have to watch my YouTube short all about.
That's true. I mean, I didn't know you guys do it differently, honestly. Yeah, I mean that's to me that's normal. You do 11, the day, 11, 11, 23. That's normal to me, but I didn't know you guys do it differently. See, that's interesting. That's interesting.
One of my longtime patrons, Jeff, asked me on this week's secret live stream. In the US, most people have memorized their phone numbers and social security numbers. What personal numbers are people expected to know in Britain? And phone numbers used to be one of those until we didn't need to anymore. But our equivalent of America's social security number is our national insurance number, or as it's known intimately to me, NIN. Nobody calls it that really. So, what are the major numerical differences between an SSN and a NIN? Well, for once, it isn't the number of characters, because an SSN has 9 and a NIN has 9. Try saying that after 7 white.
My mom always get to me, always talking to me about, you gotta learn your social security number. I just take a picture of it.
But the difference here is similar to zip codes versus postcodes. A NIN is comprised of 2 letters followed by 6 numbers and another letter for good measure. In the US, it's all numbers. America doesn't like letters. The first set of 3 digits is the area number, the second set of 2 digits is the group number, and then the final set of 4 digits is the serial number. We all care about that, obviously. The point is, I have both a NIN and an SSN, so I'm special. Time. Is it real? Oh, that's a different video. Well, sometimes, to people like me who've lived on 3 different time zones, time can feel like it's ahead of its time. So I don't want to get bogged down in that, because there are other differences to talk about, namely how we tell the time. For instance, in Britain, if the time is 9:15, we might well say it's 9:15. In America, you often hear a 9:15, and similarly, Brits might refer to 9:30 as 9:30, whereas Americans might say 9:30. But the biggest difference between British and American digital clocks can be seen once we get to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. At that point in America, clocks will simply say 1 o'clock. But not in Britain, where it suddenly goes from 12:59 to 13 o'clock. And that's because British clocks are on military...
Wow, yeah. Yeah, he's about to... Yeah, so you guys use military time a lot, I see. Okay.
Time. And when I lived in Britain, I never knew this as military time. In fact, it was Americans that alerted me to this term. I just thought of it as time, like the whole world does this. And now that I know that it is military time, I'm confused that America doesn't do it, because they have the biggest military in the world. And then I found that the US military does do it, but the general public doesn't. Either way, to this very day, I instinctively know that 7 p.m. in the evening, that last word was redundant, is equal to 19 o'clock.
Oh, this is so
that
interesting.
British people don't go around saying 19 o'clock. In conversation, we would say 7, which makes it even weirder, I suppose, that our clocks don't do that. Anyway, a moment ago when I was talking about quarters, there's one thing that I forgot to mention, because it wasn't quite relevant yet, and that's how the two countries refer to a quarter, as in the fraction. Because I've noticed that Americans, like my wife for example, use the words quarter and 1/4 interchangeably. But having grown up in Britain, 1/4 always sounds weird to me, because we would only say quarter in that context. But I'm afraid that I'm going to have to interrupt myself there with a couple of caveats. The first of those is we don't have special words for other fractions, except for half. But then again, if you were to say 1/2, you could get confused with the time. And the other thing that might explain why Americans often plump for 1/4 is that a quarter is already part of the national dialogue, because that's the name of an American coin of the same name. Did you edit this? And I want to finish this video by talking about 3 numbers in particular, the first of which is 0. Is 0 a number? I'm no mathematician. And 0 is an interesting one to me because both countries have synonyms of the word 0 that the other country doesn't have. In America, somebody might say, I got zilch, as in, I've got nothing. Whereas Britain's alternatives for this nice round number are often context dependent. Firstly, you've got nil, which you often find in sport, as in, Grimsby Town Football Club won the FA Cup final 6-0, whereas American commentators are more likely to say 6-0 or 6-zilch. And then there's the word naught, which from memory is what I called 0 when I was a little kid. But it's also used in the title of a game that Americans call tic-tac-toe, a game that we call noughts and crosses. And remember earlier when I said this? My area code was 01472. This use of O to denote 0 in phone numbers is not something you often hear in America, where the preferred option would be 01472. And then
some people still, I hear it when people use O for 0. I hear it sometimes. It's not commonplace, but I be hearing it.
were 7, or 2 actually, but 7 is one of them. Here in the United States, the number 7 is almost always written with 1 horizontal stroke and 1 diagonal stroke. But as many observant Americans have often pointed out to me, this is not always the case in Britain, where to that we like to add another horizontal stroke through the middle. And you might be thinking, why do you do that? And the answer is simple: to avoid confusion with the number 1. And to all of the Americans laughing at this idea, 7-Eleven agrees with me.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen that too. We don't do that here. Honestly, we don't do that. It's not commonplace here. But my mother, she's not from here. She's from Haiti. She do that. Whenever she writes her 7, she always put the cross. Yeah. So that's I've seen that. I think a lot of other people may not see it, but I've seen it.
Realise that's probably not an argument in my favour. And finally, how do you define 1 billion? Well, most people today who have a grasp of big numbers would tell you 1,000 million, but try telling that to British people from before the 70s. And that's because before 1974, British people, as well as a host of other countries, defined a billion as 1 million million, otherwise known as a long billion, or more commonly, a trillion. And you might be thinking, what did those British people call 1,000 million? And the answer is simple: 1,000 million. However, all of this ceased to be the case when we followed the American example, a decision that was taken by 69th UK Prime Minister Harold Wilson, not to be confused with 67th UK Prime Minister Harold Wilson. That said, most European countries actually still operate under the long billion, which makes you wonder, is Luxembourg the richest country just because it keeps adding on 3 zeros? I've no idea.
That's funny.
Well, if I've learned anything today, it's that both countries have a very different set of numbers and occasionally letters. And for somebody who's already not very good at math, this video has really made me miss my word videos. Anyway, thank you to my ponderers with whom I recently discussed this topic on our secret live streams. If you would like to become a ponderer of lost...
Well, guys, man, I mean, I learned a lot. See, that's why I like this type of videos, because it educates me. It shows me, like, you know, the differences between our country and you guys' country. I love to learn more about you guys. So that was a great video. Wow, it really opened my eyes a little bit about, you know, the differences. But yeah, guys, thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the comments, all the subscribers. Just continue to support, continue to subscribe, continue to like, continue to comment on what you want to see next, and tell me, do you guys want to see more of these type of videos? Man, I would love to watch more of these type of videos, because he clearly lived on both sides, so he's seen a lot. So I think his experience or his expertise would be valuable to this channel. Tell me if you guys want to see more on this type of videos, then I'll keep them coming. And one more thing, I've seen you guys requests on things to react to. I'm getting to it. I've seen some, I've noticed some of them, and I'm gonna do it. I just gotta set it up correctly. Alright, thank you guys so much. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. See you on the next one.